Welcome. Whoops. I set the sound, so I should know. Thank you, everyone who was here a couple of weeks ago at the Farmers Market in Wellfleet, which Jeff Carlson and Farouk have held down all season with olive oil. They raised $3,500 for Palestine. I'm really impressed on a weekly basis at the Farmers Market. And Farouk said, yeah, I got this guy who's been playing Gaza songs for a couple of years, named David Rovix. And I said, you must mean David Roth. He lives down in Orleans. And he says, no, David Rovix. And I said, wait a minute. And I went to, because I get his posters, and he's back from Europe. And there it is, October the 17th, Eastham, Massachusetts. And then I said, oh, 18th. That's Boston. Oh, well, that was a good cold call, Farouk. Well done. I was impressed. But I must admit, my story is that 25 years ago, he was the soundtrack for Howard Zinn, rest in peace. Noam Chomsky, still with us. Robert Lifton, rest in peace. Amy Goodman, thank God she's still around. And they uploaded that to the satellite. They were at the Provincetown Town Hall, and he sang his Hiroshima song for Robert Lifton, who wrote one of the major books on Hiroshima. I was just, it really is. David Rovix coming to our little town here. Thanks so much for coming. David Rovix and Kamala. It rhymes with koala.
Kamala.
Kamala, okay. So David Rovix.
Wonderful to see you all here. And I made a promise to people that they'd learn something tonight, and so we're going to start with the 19th century and then gradually work our way towards the present. Once upon a century, people lived above this glen. There were 50 houses here with parents and their children. But someone said they owned what those 4 generations had called their homes across the Scottish nation. Allotments kept on shrinking while the rent would only rise. One by one the broken crofters left the open skies, the frozen shores of Nova Scotia in a far-off colony, or somewhere else across the sea. Once upon a century, from the ways of old, from something like the golden rule to the rule of gold, it's just the logic of the market. Supply and demand says to drive the people from the land. Instead of eerie silence reverberating all around, among the gardeners and shepherds, you would hear the sound of the pipes and drums and choirs, of the songs that would be sung, and the stories that were told in the Gaelic tongue. Once upon a century, you'd never think it could, to turn into a field what had been a neighborhood. Once there were the promises of loyalty or clan, and then there was just profit if you can. If we travel back to a different time and space, it was possible for most to afford to live someplace. But it's the logic of the market, each investor's conviction. More money is just grounds for any eviction. Once upon a century, they cleared the highlands for the sheep. Most folks did not resist as the rent became too steep. They packed their things and moved empire, and clearance is your thanks. From the crofts of Scotland to the sidewalks of LA, if anything has changed, who can say? Once upon a century, people lived above this land. There were 50 houses here with parents and their children.
Woo!
So, gotta see. I outsourced my brain to a tablet. It's very fashionable these days. So, there's a statue that the city of Toronto is putting up with certain degree of potentially suspicious timing, and it's a statue of a Canadian citizen who originally came from Missouri, but ended his life a citizen of Canada named Joshua Glover. And this is a story about how Joshua Glover became a Canadian citizen, which involved the one time when the state of Wisconsin attempted to enforce the Fugitive Slave Act back in 1854. Gather round, me friends, I'll tell you a tale about the day one young man was taken off to jail and shipped north of Lake Michigan for a trial to see if he should be sent back to live in slavery. Life of bondage was what Joshua had seen, but then he left Missouri and moved to Racine, where he worked in a sawmill by the lake shore in Wisconsin in 1854. When the word got round, outrage spread. The idea of sending people back to the bondage they had fled was one that could not be allowed to stand, although it was the law of the land. Passed by the Congress 4 years prior, guaranteed to start a prairie fire, which was what would be in store in Wisconsin in 1854. Thousands went to Haymarket Square, the most people who had ever gathered there. In Racine, where they decided they'd go see how that trial would go up in Milwaukee. When they got there and looked around, saw the thousands more people on the ground who had come on horseback, ready for war in Wisconsin in 1854. The jail turned out to be no match at all for all of the people who'd answered the call. They laid siege to the place till they'd gotten their men. Then together the thousands they ran, away from the cops and then onward forth. The Underground Railroad brought him north, so Joshua Glover would be a slave nevermore in Wisconsin in 1854. No more attempts would ever be made since that Milwaukee prison raid to enforce this federal law. After the rising that everyone saw, it was dead in the water, and that's a fact. The Fugitive Slave Act. When all the people said what they stood for in Wisconsin in 1854. Gather round me, friends, I'll tell you a tale about the day one young man was taken off to jail and shipped north of Lake Michigan for a trial to see if he should be sent back to live in slavery. So then so the U.S. invaded, Canada had a long-standing habit of accepting escaped enslaved people from the U.S. and making them Canadian citizens, and this was very upsetting to the powers that be here in the USA. So in 1812, they sent the army in to go invade Canada, and they burned down every building in the city of York in the middle of the winter. Government offices, because it was then what is now Toronto, was the capital back then, and they burned down government offices and also civilian homes. And then Canadian retaliation came in the form of the British Navy. And they did not burn down any civilian homes, but they did burn down the Congress, the Supreme Court, and the White House. It was a great day for the construction industry. Retaliation came 2 years later because, things were slower back then. The War of 1812 was largely fought in 1814. But we were all supposed to forget about that war anyway,
Without a glorious victory.
Yeah, there was definitely no glorious victory. But we got the Star-Spangled Banner out of it, which is an explicitly pro-slavery song. If you actually look at the verses they never sing at the football games. Robert Ross was from Lost Trevor. He was born in County Down. His family was given land there by the British Crown. He was a man born in the gentry, born with wealth and fame, but he joined the British Army to serve his queen and make his name. In the Napoleonic Wars, he fought in many lands, in Holland and in Spain and the far-off Egyptian sands. He was wounded there in battle, came back to fight another day, and he was sent off to attack the USA. York had been sacked and burned by invading Yankee men, but the Canadians regrouped, chased the Yankees home, and then the British Navy made its way to the shores of D.C. town, where General Ross burned the White House down. The year was 1814, the U.S. was in retreat. It was a Canadian victory, an American defeat. Without the French to help them, they got their ass whipped by the Crown when General Ross burned the White House down. The place had just been constructed only 12 years before, but it had to be rebuilt. Soon after this disastrous war, the president turned tail and ran like a raggedy clown when General Ross burned the White House down. He was killed a few months later. Irish rebels stopped him in his tracks. He was buried in Nova Scotia, in the town of Halifax. He might have been forgotten, but he'll forever be renowned. He's the man who burned the White House down. He's the man who burned the White House down. Well, we'll come on over to the 21st century now for a little bit, and then we'll go back in time again, because even if really horrible things are much easier to swallow when it's 200 years ago, I've noticed. There's a certain moment, if you're lucky enough, when you might so viscerally understand so hard how all of us are all members of the human family. Some people hear a song, others fall in love. Some people leave home and see the world. For me it was in an article I read, just a photo of a little girl. She was maybe 3 years old, with a mop of curly brown hair, despondent, standing on the ruins of her home, clutching a little teddy bear. Ain't it something how a heart can melt like that, just from a single picture frame? How an image can make sense of everything that matters, and you don't even need to know her name. Because we all know children just like her. We want to make them safe and hold them tight. And we can't imagine how someone could do this and create such a sight. She was maybe 3 years old, with a mop of curly brown hair, despondent, standing on the ruins of her home, clutching a little teddy bear. I might forget the details of whatever it was I read, but that photograph is seared in my mind. The photo of the girl that was a photo of all the children, all of humankind. Greatest lessons that I ever could have learned didn't come from all the stories that were filed, nor from all the speeches or statistics, but from one photo of a broken little child. She was maybe 3 years old, with a mop of curly brown hair, despondent, standing on the ruins of her home, clutching a little teddy bear. There's a certain moment, if you're lucky enough, when you might so viscerally understand so hard how all of us are all members of the human family.
Wow.
So, it's just been 2 years of just constant trauma and re-traumatization, watching Al Jazeera and seeing Palestinians cover their own annihilation, mostly footage that the Western media refuses to cover or acknowledge as real. And now, of course, it's all these different things happening every day. There's some new, august body declaring the obvious, there's a famine happening, this is genocidal behavior on the Israeli parts, that sort of thing. And of course, one of those august bodies is the International Board of Holocaust Scholars, right? They all are pretty much unanimous. That's the one thing that distinguishes what is happening in Gaza right now compared to the time of the Third Reich and its crimes against any decency, against any sanity, against all the children, against all humanity. From Auschwitz to Gaza, there's no difference between babies and fighters on that side of the fence, the side where they starve because the food is kept out by the occupation, no others, no doubt, where people are dropping dead on their feet while searching for crumbs of food on the street. From Auschwitz to Gaza, all night and all day, all the people inside just wasting away. Everyone but waiting for death to arrive, shot or starved or burned alive, where each passing moment is punctured by groans of a million children as thin as their bones. From Auschwitz to Gaza, the outside world knew, and many lamented about what they might do. Leaders looked for money to be made in the arms trade. Once again, just like this, profiting from the apocalypse. From Auschwitz to Gaza, the stages of starvation are exactly the same under occupation. First the fat goes, then all the rest, the muscle, the marrow, the milk and the breasts of all nursing mothers as in front of their eyes, their babies cry their last little cries. From Auschwitz to Gaza, under either command, all of the killing is entirely planned. Whether they call it a camp or a zone, it's all the same skin and bone. Whether they say work makes you free or humanitarian city. From Auschwitz to Gaza, the political line, from occupied Poland to Palestine, leaders outside will say they weren't aware of the extent of the horrors happening there. They'll shed a few tears and somberly then make a speech at the UN. From Auschwitz to Gaza, all over the place, the lives of the leaders who seem to save face, who say we would have acted if only we knew all that they claim they really would do, and no one will believe at the time when some foolish person says never again. From Auschwitz to Gaza.
Well, people have been saying so many nice things about Portland, Oregon since I came to the East Coast. And Liz, I am very happy about all the people coming out in frog costumes. And Portland has a lot of different sort of things happening in it, you know, and like when people who are not normally politically inclined suddenly become politically inclined, then it's wonderful and artistic and exactly the kind of thing we're seeing with the frogs. And then at other times, when things are not in the news and there's not a lot of people coming out in the streets who are politically inclined, the general default setting in Portland is complete, unbelievable levels of inability for leftists to communicate with each other, and just totally toxic atmosphere characterized best by a burning dumpster. And I am not, this is not an allegory or a metaphor, you know. We're talking about actual burning dumpsters. It's the worst thing for a gathering. If you're trying to have a protest and then there's a few masked, black-clad youth who think that burning a dumpster is a very good idea, you tend to have other ideas that are certainly good. And I wrote the song about them. A lot of them are fans of my music, and I'm very glad about that. And they like this song, too. So, you know, life is complicated, and that's okay.
I don't drive a car because they run on gas. We define it. It run on biomass. I ride a bike, or sometimes a skateboard. So fuck off all you drivers and your yummy hordes, sitting all day in the traffic queues. I'm a better anarchist than you. I don't eat meat. I just live on moldy chives or the donuts that I found in last week's dumpster dives. Looking at people in that restaurant, I think you are so sad when you could have been eating bagels like the ones that I just had. I think it is a shame all the bourgeois things you do. I'm a better anarchist than you. I don't wear leather, and I like my clothes in black, and I meet a really cool hammock from a freight trains. I think that is so cool. It's so much funner doing this than being stuck in school. I can't believe you're wearing those brand new shiny shoes. I'm a better anarchist than you. I don't have sex, and there will be no sequel, because heterosexual relationships are inherently unequal. I'll just keep on moshing to anti-flag and crass until there are no differences in gender, race, or class. All you brainwashed readers, you just haven't got a clue. I'm a better anarchist than you. I don't believe in leaders. I think consensus is the key. I don't believe in stupid notions like representative democracy. Whether or not it works, I know it is the case that only direct action can save the human race. So when I see you in your voting booth, then I know it's true. I'm a better anarchist than you. I am not a pacifist. I like throwing bricks, and when the cops have coffee and a drink and a few licks, I always feel lucky if I get a bloody nose, because I feel so militant and everybody knows. By the time the riot is all through, I'm a better anarchist than you. I'm a better anarchist than you.
So when I was 4 years old, and some of you were young adults, and others of you weren't born yet, depending on which ones. It might be that kind of mix. But back in 1970, there was a heck of a lot of protests against the Vietnam War going on all over the country. And my friend Al and his friend Clyde, who were both, I think, around 20, 21 years old at the time, were going to lots of marches against the war, and they were pouring blood on the draft cards and burning the draft cards and all the different things that a lot of people were doing back then. And they wanted to step it up and do something else, and they grew up in towns very much like those near here that were coastal and also had naval bases, and they thought the most sensible thing they could think of to do was to join the merchant marine so that they could hijack a ship full of bombs. Which is what they went about trying to do.
Death was raining from the skies all over Vietnam. Al and Clyde decided they had to try to stop the bombs. These two young men signed up to join the merchant marine, horrified by what they heard along with what they'd seen. They began to have discussions. They found a common goal. They joined the crew of the Columbia Eagle, and then they take control. The ship was full of napalm, heading across the sea to be loaded on the planes and be dropped on the country to burn the skin off of people beneath it at the time. They vowed to break the law to prevent greater crime. They thought they'd spend their lives in prison, or more likely they would die. But Clyde and Al agreed that at least they had to try to sail to Cambodia with all the napalm as well, where it might remain forever, the bombs that never fell. They carried out their plan, and they didn't slip. Just two guns between them, but soon they ran the ship. They brought it to neutral waters by seeing the bill that these bombs might never be sent to maim and kill. But that's not how it ended. The next thing that they there was a military coup. Clyde McKay died in the jungle with so many of his peers. In a California prison, Al Blackowski spent 8 years. The ship was not off course by much more than a day. The future of the folly, perhaps they didn't change it. But while the blood was flowing and most people spent their days maybe marching on the streets or just joining the rat race, there are those among us who can say they really tried, who did everything they possibly could to stop the fratricide. If you see a big white beard on the Central Eastern shore, he might be a mutineer who tried to stop the war. Gather round, I'll tell a story about a man I know, what he did across the ocean half a century ago. This is another favorite story of international solidarity from that period, just a couple of years later, back in 1973, 74. Jet fighters bombed the palace. We all watched on TV. The 11th of September, 1973. All across the world, people cried in vain as we heard stories of the students being tortured and slain. Stories of the workers, shop stewards, and the rest being slaughtered at the new dictator's behest. Labor groups condemned it, said we were on the workers' side, including all the engineers of East Kilbride. People organized a boycott of General Pinochet, who had overthrown Allende with a Hawker-Hunter jet. Then a few months later, March of '74, Bob Fulton came to work at the Rolls-Royce factory floor. He looked at the orders that had come in that day and found crates with jet engines from Chile. Jet engines from the Air Force across the ocean wide, sent to be repaired in East Kilbride. It didn't take a minute for Fulton and his mates to come to the decision they would not touch these crates. Soon 4,000 Rolls-Royce workers voted they agreed to stand with the Chileans in their hour of need. Management decried them, the Tories screamed and cussed, but the Hawker-Hunter engines were left to sit and rust. Nowhere else on earth were workers qualified to repair the engine sitting there in East Kilbride. It's often hard to know if you've changed anything a whit, but decades later a Chilean general would admit, for a time in Santiago there were no fighters in the sky, because the whole Chilean Air Force had not one jet that could fly. They may not have changed the world, this group of union engineers, but these crates of metal sat corroding for 4 years. So here's to British labor, how for 4 years it tried to do what could be done from East Kilbride. Jet fighters bombed the palace, we all watched it on TV. The 11th of September, 1973. We'll do
one more, and then we'll take a little intermission, during which I highly recommend all the food sitting on the counter there. If there's any left, it's amazing. I ate most of it, but there's still some. And there's a brilliant Palestinian poet named Rafif Ziada, and she used to live in DC, and back 22, 23 years ago we used to hang out quite a bit, and she'd be at my shows, and if I ever made the mistake of saying this song is related to the occupied territories, without specifying, exactly what I was talking about, she'd always say, "Which occupied territories? You're in North America." So this is about another occupied territory. I promise in the second set we'll sing more about those other occupied territories. We've only got to that a little bit so far, but I've actually written 65 songs about the genocide since it started. But if we did it all tonight, you'd all just jump off a cliff at the end of the evening, and it would not be the desired impact we're trying to have. But this is another true story of solidarity. There's lots of beautiful ones to sing about it from recent years, but they're kind of eclipsed by massive carnage. There was a lot of carnage happening in the 1840s too, but it's kind of a distant. My name is John Riley. I'll have your dear only a while. I left my dear home in Ireland. It was death, starvation, or exile. When I got to America, it was my duty to go, enter the army and slog across Texas to join in the war against Mexico. It was there in the pueblos and hillsides that I saw the mistake I had made. Part of a conquering army with the morals of a bayonet blade. So in the midst of these poor dying Catholics, screaming children, the burning stench of it all, myself and 200 Irishmen decided to rise to the call. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. That's the chorus. They're all sing along, by the way. If you can figure out the chorus before the song's over, that's a trick. We marched beneath the green flag of St. Patrick, emblazoned with Baron Cobra, right with the harp and the shamrock, and the Libertad of the Republica. Just 50 years after Wolf's Tone, 5,000 miles away, the Yanks called us a legion of strangers, and they can talk as they may. But from Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. We fought them in 5 major battles. Churubusco was the last. Overwhelmed by the cannons from Boston, we fell after each mortar blast. Most of us died on that hillside at the service of the Mexican state. So far from our occupied homeland, we were heroes and victims of fate. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. So there was, I guess everywhere we're going, we're hearing stories from people who have witnessed traumatic ice raids and people being abducted off the streets. And my youngest two children go to a Waldorf school in Portland where there was just an abduction that happened right in front of the school just after it was over. And in Arizona, long before all Trump and raids, we had people like the sheriff of Maricopa County and others, and they passed a law in Arizona some time ago that gives potentially up to 20 years prison sentence to anybody who knowingly provides transportation or lodging to somebody who's here without papers. And the response from the Catholic workers and organizations like No More Deaths is Matthew 25. Go to Pima County in the Sonoran desert lands. You'll find the town of Ajo among the cactus stands. The only town you'll see, the only water too. When someone is thirsty, there's no question what you do. For well over a century, it was a normal thing to have an extra jug of water that you may bring. In the harsh Sonoran Arizona summer heat, we'd rather give the vultures something else to eat. You didn't ask where I was going, nor where I'd been. I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was naked, you gave me clothes. I was a stranger. You let me in. I have this book here, a story I learned well. I always thought I understood the tale that it tells. It's spelled out very clearly in Matthew 25. What a good Christian does when a stranger arrives. You didn't ask where I was going, nor where I'd been. I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was naked, you gave me clothes. I was a stranger. You let me in. Now there's a crackdown with life and death on trial. The only place with water for 100 miles. Facing 20 years in prison is a very mighty rod. Now all of us are forced to choose between Caesar and God. You didn't ask where I was going, nor where I'd been. I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was naked, you gave me clothes. I was a stranger. You let me in. You let me in. You let me in. But there's other people we'd love to see deported.
their families, clean houses, drive trucks, and work in factories. You round them up and take them off in military planes, carrying out your solemn vow back for where they came. Why is it always the poorest of the poor are the ones upon whom we're declaring war? And what if we took back what was never really theirs, nationalize the banks and deport the billionaires? We could liberate the capital to invest in things we need, housing, food, and healthcare. They've got it all indeed. It's all wrapped up in investments and shooting to the moon. And if things go as they're going, they'll have more of it soon. But why is it always the poorest of the poor are the ones upon whom we're declaring war? And what if we took back what was never really theirs, nationalize the banks and deport the billionaires? You say you'll fix the rising prices that are making us all frown. If you deport our neighbors, maybe rents go down. But I've done the math and scientists agree, if we nationalize those billions, we can all live here rent-free. Why is it always the poorest of the poor upon whom we're declaring war? And what if we took back what was never really theirs, nationalize the banks and deport the billionaires? Nationalize the banks and deport the billionaires. Nationalize the banks and deport the billionaires.
So I wonder how all the Palestinians who, when they heard about the negotiating team that was coming over to declare ceasefire, and when they heard that the negotiating team included the guy, the billionaire real estate developer who had first suggested a resort on the Gaza Riviera, and they heard that Jared Kushner was on the team, they probably all rejoiced and thought, oh, here we go, this is going to just solve, he's going to solve all our problems.
Everything is burning. As I watch the video, she crawls out of the ruins, venturing to go out in search of water, that final human need, although the consequences are almost guaranteed. As she goes out in the open, beneath the killer drones, which aims its sights on her, then shreds her to the bones, then waits for any people who might be fool enough to try come to fetch her body beneath the smoke-filled sky. 2 million people behind the ghetto wall wait for 2 tug bombs to fall, to crush and burn the schools and tents where your whole extended family went. Scores more murdered with each passing day, with so many more on the edge of being taken away, surrounded by tanks that fire at will, and the rest of the world stands by still, completely surrounded with no food getting in, ghost-like faces, impossibly thin, kids that look like babies born, thirsty, starving, and forlorn. Men are being taken to who knows where, the elderly, the babies, the wounded in chairs, with donkey carts and wagons south on cue, as the drones above the rubble ordered them to do. They're carrying out the general's plan, which means kill all the kids that you possibly can. Anyone moving, soldiers take aim, who they are doesn't matter, they're all the same. Make no distinctions, orders decree, killing them all is just how it must be. And right now in New Jersey, you can buy shares in the resort Jared Kushner plans to build there.
Well, I've traveled around a lot of different countries, 25 different countries. Many of them settler colonial countries where they speak English, and others, other ones. And I've certainly never been to a more racist society than Israel. Although, you know, there's a lot of racists in the US and Australia, to take two examples that are having a lot of racists in them, but never encountered anything like Israel. And it's not the least bit surprising because of what they've lived through over the past 80 years of attempting somewhat unsuccessfully to steal somebody else's land. Stealing other people's land always invites retaliation, especially if you don't kill everybody first. They tend to fight back when they're starving. And this country is full of those examples. And I'm often told by Israeli supporters of Israel who I somehow get into arguments with. I never do actually anymore, but I used to engage with them. Now I just write songs and hope they can maybe hear them and learn something. But I used to engage with them and they would say, and I do read their insults, so I'm somewhat familiar with the whole, you know, the lines they're trying to put out there. But one of the things they always say, which I always found to be one of their least impressive efforts at convincing anybody of the rightness of their cause, is they would say, but you killed all your Indians. You killed all your Indians. And they're serious. They're not saying like, you did a bad thing, or your ancestors did a bad thing. They're saying, you did what you needed to do. We're just doing what we need to do. What's the problem? You know, why are you criticizing us? I'm like, it's so hypocritical. And I've heard that from so many people. It's a twisted world out there. But this is a song about 1861 and 1862 in Minnesota, which bears such a resemblance to what's been happening in the past 2 years in Gaza, Israel. He heard that they were on their way when the settlers came. Little Crow knew that nothing now would ever be the same. The treaties he agreed to, signed under duress, he watched as the land of the Indians was less and less and less. His people were left with a patch only 20 miles wide, a little bit of land by the Mississippi riverside, a little bit of land with a very uncertain fate once this place called Minnesota became a state. Little Crow went all the way to Washington, D.C., where he appealed his people's case to the highest authority. Then they took away half the land allotted for his kin, and then even that little patch saw more settlers moving in. Little Crow watched them hunting and logging all the trees. He watched his people growing hungry. He watched the children freeze when their meager crops failed. He went in search of aid from the Indian agents who had grown rich from the money that they'd made. What should have fed the people lined their pockets instead. Lincoln sent an investigator, and that's just what he said. The standard was corruption. Treaties need to be broken along with comforting words, duplicitously spoken. Little Crow told his people, words bitter on his tongue. The agents that said his people could eat grass in their own dung. Peaceful coexistence could clearly last no more. He gathered up an army and set out to go to war. His warriors raided the stores of food that should have been theirs. They took guns and ammunition, put soldiers in their crosshairs. They won one battle after another, drove all the settlers out until divisions heading south were given a new route. Little Crow's uprising was finally suppressed, and the Indians of Minnesota were sent far off to the west, where they're part of the uprising. To the authorities it didn't matter, and they died of famine and disease. Little Crow was killed picking berries with his son, shot down by a settler out hunting with his shotgun. For handing in his scalp, the hunter made a dandy sum, and his bones were displayed in a museum. Little Crow was a leader, and it seems to me he made decisions when every option was impossibility. He had the choice to starve and die in what was
decided it was time to make a stand. He heard that they were on their way, and when the settlers came, Little Crow knew that nothing now would ever be the same.
Yeah, here's a song that somebody mentioned. Back when Chuck and Bob organized that gig, like I believe was like 25 years ago, but may have been less than 25 years ago. Something between 20 and 25 years ago, I think, in Provincetown. I think it was, actually, no, it would have been, I did this song there. Okay, it would have been 22 years ago, maybe. At least 22 years ago. Well, I mean, no, 22 or less, maybe 20. Yeah, he might have been right about that. Because I had just recently, I guess it was in 2003, yeah, when I was in a Whole Foods market in Houston, Texas, wearing one of my t-shirts that had the picture of G.W. Bush and the words "International Terrorist" on it, which I had fired up. And somebody came up to me in the market pointing at the picture, and he said, "He's a man of God. He's a man of God." He was really pissed. And I said, "Oh, well, who would Jesus bomb?" And he was just like completely befuddled. He had nothing to say. And I should write a song about that. I mean, I always liked the bumper sticker, but then it had such an impact on him, I thought, you know. Oh, and I remember doing that song back then with it was Noam Chomsky, Howard Zinn, Amy Goodman, and me. It was the peak of my career. It happened 25 years ago. It's all been downhill. Robert Chivett. Yeah, see, you can't beat the bill. So.
I've seen you in the streets and at your political conventions, talking of your crusade, talking of your nation, and other things too terrible to mention. You proclaim your Christianity, you proclaim your love of God, you talk of apple pie and mom. I've just got one question and I want an answer. Tell me, who would Jesus bomb? Maybe Jesus would bomb the Syrians, 'cause they're not Jews like him. Maybe Jesus would bomb the Afghans on some kind of vengeful whim. Maybe Jesus would drive an M1 tank and he would hang Saddam. Who would Jesus bomb? On the battleships, I've seen you in the house upon the hill, and I've heard you talking about making
So the president of Veterans for Peace in Olympia, Washington, the Rachel Corrie chapter of Veterans for Peace, 𝙏𝙗𝙚 is currently being held by ICE, right?
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah.
The police just said somebody's driveway is blocked by a Tacoma. Does anybody own a Tacoma here? I don't even know what that is. Okay, thank you.
Cool, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's important. 𝙏𝙗𝙚 went in for his ICE interview for citizenship after having been in the country for decades and having served honorably in the U.S. military and been wounded in the course of service, but none of that kept ICE from detaining him for being an enemy, an unwanted person.
He was very young when he moved to the USA. He often visited his uncle. That's where he came to live, out in Washington Way. He wanted to be helpful to fight the forest fires when the National Guard deploys. So he joined up to serve and be just another one of the boys. After 9/11, everything changed. He was approached by the FBI. He just wanted to be somebody living in the Northwest. He didn't want to be a spy. But that's when the trouble started, when he got on a list, and the trouble has kept up since then. Trouble crossing borders, with flying on planes, being followed by mysterious men. Then came the awful day in 2005, while training to be deployed to Iraq. On an exercise there was an accident, and Mohammed Zahid Chowdhury broke his back. Life had taken him to certain places, and soon he joined Veterans for Peace. Now 2 decades after he was discharged, his family cries for his release. He went in for his appointment in August 2025. This decorated military veteran, who doctors said would likely not survive, but instead of coming out with citizenship, he's been brutally detained, kept in solitary confinement with no medication for the pain that Zahid needs to take since the accident that left him in a wheelchair while his little daughter is at home, asking her mama where is Baba? When is he coming back? If you ask ICE, no one will say. How can you arrest a wounded veteran and treat him this way?
Let's see. I had another one in mind, but now I can't remember what it was. There was that one in the United States. but I can't remember what. Some other story. What was it? I could just scroll. There's too many to scroll. Rumor, that's a good one. Yeah, here's a song. Back like 23 years ago, before Facebook or any of those other horrible corporate platforms existed and destroyed our means of communication, there were things like indie media. And so there was like people like me and a lot of people around who knew about all sorts of things that were happening in the world that were not being reported hardly at all in our press. And one of the things that was really making the rounds as far as the sort of global left, I guess, was a certain protest that had taken place in the Australian outback in 2002 around Easter. After they had entered, the protests were getting bigger all across the country, with the people chanting, "Free the refugees." They opened a facility in the middle of nowhere. Adelaide was 500 miles south of there, out of sight and out of mind, imprisoned with no phone. The government was hoping they'd be cut off there alone, till one day people came from all over the country, and you could hear them chanting, "Free the refugees." From all over Australia, converged in the desert at the prison in 𝙬𝙗𝙬 When they got to the center, gathered on the fence line, some of those inside the prison took it as a sure sign that this was the moment they would flee, as they could hear the people chanting, "Free the refugees." Scores of them got out with the demonstrators to the parking lot from the middle of the desert. Despite the dragnet, a whole bunch of the imprisoned managed to get some semblance of freedom and a lasting memory, when they could hear the people chanting, "Free the refugees." Safeguard the ports, to imprison human beings until they self-deport. If they don't come with the right papers, send them away. Who cares what any of the bleeding hearts say? Who cares why they fled their homes and came across the sea? Now listen to the people chanting, "Free the refugees, free the refugees, free the refugees, free the refugees." So it was a good moment when all these campus occupations were starting up in April of 24, I guess it was, and before they started deporting all the formerly permanent residents who were involved with organizing the encampments. We sang at the last encampment that Europe had, which was in Gothenburg, Sweden, and the week after we sang at the encampment, it was shut down by the authorities forcibly.
Because some pro-Israeli protesters wanted to gather on that spot. Couldn't be a different spot, it had to be that spot. So, of course, the pro-Palestine protesters had to be moved on, of course.
Yeah, it's a gigantic campus, but, you know, it's happening now, like it has before, at the universities, in a time of war. Put people together, they'll communicate, talk about things like college and state, talk about the research that built the Iron Dome, talk about their relatives starving back at home, talk about tuition and where the money's spent and where all the buildings in Gaza went. Wake up each morning and the headlines say how many hundreds of Palestinians died today, how many thousands were killed in the past week. People get together, people speak, the newscasters say with surety the campuses lack security. Meanwhile, across the ocean wide, Palestinian genocide, people are saying they won't leave till they win, and then the police are sent in. Clean and arrested staff and students, and to try to silence this growing movement, they're punishing people for making it known that the direct connection can be easily shown. How the investments of this institution are funding another final solution. Where it goes is anyone's guess. After all, this is the U.S. Battles have been lost and won, but with bombs being dropped every day by the ton, with the orphaned and famished beneath the sky, waiting for the moment when it's their turn to die. Some people just can't look away. They have to set up a tent on the campus and say, boycott, sanction, and divest. 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 Well, you guys have been a fabulous audience. We'll do one more. And thanks so much to Farouk and Chuck and Bob and Nancy and everybody who put this together and spread the word. It really worked. If you know anybody in Boston, we're going to be there tomorrow evening at the Community Church of Boston, in Copley Square. And then we're going the next day early in the morning to get to Manhattan for an event on Sunday at 1 in the afternoon. And assuming we get there on time, we will, well, actually we're going last, so we will get there on time. It goes from 1 to 4, a bunch of speakers and us performing. And we'll also be playing in Brooklyn and Long Island and Great Barrington, Massachusetts, and Amherst, Massachusetts, and Plainfield and Bethel, Vermont coming up. So davidrovics.com/tour, all those gigs are listed there. And this one was there too, yeah. And if you want to support my efforts to not get a real job, I'm on Patreon and Substack. I write a lot of essays and record a lot of stuff, and it all goes out there for free, but you can support my family and our landlord, our corporate landlord, who doesn't know, how to make a living. They don't care. It's a corporation, but we have to give them money every month, and you can help us with that if you want to. And what else?
And there's a QR code.
Oh, there's QR codes over there and CDs too. If you're one of these minority of the population that still has a CD player because you haven't bought a new car in the past 10 years, we have CDs and it's all online for free too, as is the rest of the world's music and lots of AI slop. which I'm helping to produce. Although it's not on any of those CDs. I produce AI slop under other names, because I'm trying to stay with the modern thing. And if people don't know what AI slop is, that's good. You're better off. You're probably watching it though, and you don't realize it. So it's actually maybe better to know what it is. I recommend the New York Times weekly podcast, Hard Fork. If you're one of these people who's like wondering what's up with technology and why I don't understand anything that's happening around me, that's a good place to start. Weekly, very funny. They're very funny. So even if you don't understand what they're talking about, it's still funny. Like car talk used to be. Right? Car talk. It's like I really have no interest in cars whatsoever, but I listen to that. This is a song about my friend Katerina's grandmother. It's also Katerina. Katerina Jakob, long before she took that name, was organizing workers in Hamburg just the same. Organizing beneath the flag of deepest red, a new dawn of peace and freedom clearly shining in her head. Katerina Jakob first was sent to jail when the trappings of democracy all began to fail. She was frequently arrested in and out of custody while her first husband was in hiding from the Nazis. Katerina Jakob was acquitted of a crime, but the Gestapo had the last word. They weren't finished with her this time. She was sent to Ravensbrück, a killing hunger at her side. She heard of the execution, how her second husband died. For Katerina Jakob, the end was close at hand. She was on a death march with a ragged, starving band, marching through a forest, being led by the SS. What would happen hours later seemed impossible to guess. When the sun rose the next morning, it was the 1st of May, and they all sang the Internationale. They all sang the Internationale. Katerina Jakob thought about her children and the friends and comrades taking care of them, not knowing yet if any of them survived, not knowing that soon she'd see her daughters both alive. Katerina Jakob watched the German soldiers flee, streaming from the east, that's what she was seeing. Allied bombers flew above them, she thought they all might die, and then soon there was the silence of all the SS men. When the sun rose the next morning, it was the 1st of May, and they all sang the Internationale. They all sang the Internationale. Katerina Jakob saw red flags flapping in the breeze above the Russian tanks, and she fell upon her knees. And so many different voices in so many different tongues sang the most beautiful song that could ever have been sung. In German, Lithuanian, in Polish and in Dutch, a myriad of melodies as never had been such. In Russian and in Yiddish, Italian and French, emerged from the forest beneath the trench. When the sun rose the next morning, it was the 1st of May, and they all sang the Internationale. When the sun rose the next morning, it was the 1st of May, and they all sang the Internationale. They all sang the Internationale. Völker, die Signale auf zuletzten Effekt. Die Internationale erkämpft das Menschenrecht. Völker,
die Signale auf zum letzten Effekt. Die Internationale erkämpft das Menschenrecht.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll do one more then. You're very kind. But some of you were getting up to, like, standing up to run away, and others were I know how it is. So it's like, okay. And then some people are like, okay, we'll sit back and we'll do this real quick one. It's okay if we're walking out at the same time. When the world has gone crazy, and it's all becoming clear, when they're gunning down our comrades, and it seems the end is near, as they're loading up the launchers for the tear gas grenades, we can take off our bandanas and kiss behind the barricades. When it's madness all around, and you can see this at a glance, we will sing and we will cry, we will laugh and we will dance, as they shout their marching orders beneath the helicopter blades. We shall seize the moment for a kiss behind the barricades. They will try to break our spirit, and at times they may succeed, but our love for the world is stronger than their greed. When the building is surrounded and hope begins to fade, in my final hour, a kiss behind the barricades. As the movement grows, there will be hills and bends, but at the center of the struggle are your lovers and your friends. And the more we hold each other up, the less we can be swayed. Here's to love and solidarity, and a kiss behind